All right, looks like we're recording. And Mr. Heathcote, would you give us a call to order, and then I will call the roll?
I would. I'd like to call this meeting of the Engineering Committee for the Board of Architectural and Engineering Examiners to order, please. Michael, would you please call the roll?
Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also like to remind everyone, if you are not in the act of speaking, to please mute yourself so that we don't pick up any of the background noises. So, Mr. Heathcote. Alton, I think you just muted yourself.
Now then, I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Bursai.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Present.
Mr. King.
Here.
Great. Alton, if I may, real quick, I'd like to recognize that we have Mr. Brickta, who is the public member of the large A&E board, who is joining us, as well as Assistant Commissioner Toby Compton has joined us. And I would, before we proceed, like to ask Toby if he has anything to say, any greetings or anything.
Guys, good to be with you. Hope you all had a wonderful, long Thanksgiving weekend and were safe with your families. Just wanted to hop on today. Michael and other staff members have alerted me to the issue regarding the engineering technology degrees. I have had a couple conversations about that. I don't have a lot of information on it, but I find it to be an interesting one, and one that I believe you guys would be most keenly involved in association with the engineering societies. I think that the more I've learned about this and learned how prevalent it is nationwide, with the vast majority of states already having some sort of standards in place, it would be right and appropriate for Tennessee to at least contemplate in the weeks ahead, figure out how we want to handle these. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have had some inquiries from people seeking licensure who have this particular degree. And at the moment, we don't have a neat and easy solution. In such situations, be it maybe outside groups or maybe even legislators may be becoming aware of this issue more and more. And I think it would be most appropriate for you guys as experts and industry insiders and members of this particular board probably to kind of take the lead and kind of figure out what it is you want to do. And I don't have a prescription for that whatsoever, but I think that it would be wise and incumbent upon us to do that, because if we need to take the route of a statutory change, well, the legislative session is upon us before too long. And then obviously, if we're going to do a rules change of some sort, that's necessitated. As you all know, that takes some months to get the pipeline, get that in the pipeline and approved. So I just, we're just aware of this issue and are following it from afar, or I'm following it from afar, and kind of look forward to hearing the conversation and your input. And I think Michael is going to be working with you guys and trying to lead this along, accompanied with legal. But I hope you all are well. Thank you again for all your service, and hopefully you're staying warm. It's kind of cold outside, so take care. I'm going to stay on the call, but I'll be muted in the background and just listening more for informational purposes. Thank you all.
Thanks, Toby. Appreciate you being here today. I would now like to ask Maria Bush to read the statement of necessity, and then we can jump into our agenda.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. It is time for everybody's favorite part of the meeting, so just bear with me as I read this language. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Architectural and Engineer Examiners Engineering Committee, which is taking place by electronic means utilizing the WebEx teleconference application on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to TCA 844-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. Further, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body. A physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communications is necessary. As stated, this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Architectural and Engineer Examiners Committee. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to address regularly scheduled matters of the board in the most safe manner due to COVID-19. All voting will be conducted by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Mr. Heathcote would like to turn the meeting over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And first on the agenda, I'd like to have, if possible, a motion to amend the agenda today to include two other items that were not on there. One is at the end of the discussion related to the engineering technology as a path to licensure. Some discussion regarding decoupling, if we have time, is one. And the second item is, I believe it's time that we elect a new chairman for this committee. So at the end of the meeting, if possible, I'd like to have a nomination, a second, and a vote for the chairman's position. Do I hear a motion?
This is Robert. I've moved that be a motion, and I approve it.
Thank you, Robert. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that. It's Ricky.
Thank you, Ricky. Is there any discussion? There being none, Michael, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure thing. Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Burside.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. The first item on our agenda this morning, or this afternoon, I'm sorry, is the continuation of discussion from our previous meeting on engineering technology as a possible path to licensure. Just as a reminder to everyone, last time we met on this about 3 weeks ago, all four of our members were present, and there was, I have several notes from the discussion. There was a recommendation during the meeting from Casey that the board have a proposal for consideration. Casey, I see that you're part of this meeting today, and I'm grateful that you're here. At some point, if we come up with a plan for what we want to do or not do, then we provide that to Casey so that she could send it out into the engineering community for their consideration. So whatever we deliberate or whatever plan we come up with, obviously we want to send that to Casey for consideration among our constituents. Second thing is, as we discussed, obviously it's too late in this this legislative session, to get anything on the agenda. So I'm assuming that we would, if we pursue this and if we can come up with a resolution or no resolution, that this would be part of or not part of the legislative session in 2022. I think we set a time frame for ourselves of June of 21 to try to come up with something that we all would agree on as either an acceptable path to licensure for someone with an engineering technology degree or not. Is my memory correct on that? I'm
I
going
don't
to
know.
assume.
Yeah, I would, Alton, this is Michael. Yes, that sounds like the discussion.
Okay. Very good, and thank you. And I want to thank the staff for providing us information about which of the universities in the state right now offer engineering technology degrees. I was, quite frankly, once I got this, I was surprised at how many there actually were. So I don't know how many students or graduates every year that represents. I'd be interested to know that. I also don't exactly know where in the workplace most of the engineering technology people who graduate with an engineering technology degree go to work. My assumption was always that they would go into industry, but that may be an incorrect assumption. However, given that, would anybody like to offer discussion or consideration with the engineering committee related to an initiative, a thought, a concern, an issue, or anything related to engineering technology as a path to licensure? I'll open the floor.
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. I think that it would behoove us to maybe get a couple of these universities that have these programs, and maybe with engineering technology as well as engineering programs, and have a round table or some sort of discussion amongst them to kind of get a little bit more information. I got what Dr. Smith had and what some others have had, and um, I just would like to hear it from the people that are actually educating the students, because I think that's where a lot of the difference comes in, from what I'm seeing.
That's a good recommendation, Robert. I know I sent Michael. I went back and looked in my records, and I'd found a copy. This is Alton, by the way. I'm sorry for not identifying myself. I found a copy of the information or the evaluation that Dr. Smith had done for the board some years ago, related to the difference between an engineering degree and an engineering technology degree. I thought that was a very detailed analysis. If we do orchestrate a meeting with the representatives from those universities who have engineering technology degrees, in the interest of full disclosure and in fairness to them, I would like to provide them that information and give them an opportunity to either agree or disagree or offer alternative viewpoints.
Yeah, Alton, I think giving them the information is fine. I think that's, we need to hash this out, because just from where I'm sitting right now, I'm not sure that I can just say, "Hey, this is great," and maybe there are number of years of experience or other limitations, and I think we need to understand what those limitations need to be before we can move forward.
I agree.
This is Alton. This is Michael. If I may interject real quick, I just wanted to. I hear everything you're saying, and I just wanted to let you know that I spoke last meeting we had. We talked about one of our neighboring states that had recently adopted the engineering technology degree, or at least confronted the engineering technology degree issue, I was able to speak with my counterpart from that neighboring state, and just wanted to somewhat echo Toby's words, that you are all in a very unique position right now to have a large say in how this goes down. The Missouri state legislature took it upon themselves to create the legislation allowing for engineering technology degrees without consultation of the examiners board in that state. As it is right now, this would be a rule change and not a statutory change, which means that you all have a lot of good opportunity here. And I would like to also say that I don't believe that anyone here in the department or its state is asking of you all to declare these items equivalent, but to find a way that they can be deemed equivalent, so to speak, and that may be whether it's forms of experience and or requirement of a specific class or two to get somebody to that point. But that's I just wanted to say that you all have a great opportunity here to take a very strong leadership role in this discussion.
Again, thank you, Michael. This is Alton. Does anybody have anything to offer as to additional recommendations or considerations? Again, I agree, Robert. It would be very interesting to find out from the engineering technology program, either administrators or professors or instructors, whatever, somebody from the administration maybe even, to explain, one, what they perceive as the difference, and two, how they may be able, somebody with a technology degree might be able to get to some level of equivalency to a practicing engineer. And would we like to have that meeting and understand those parameters or ideas before we go in and weigh in and make a determination about whether or not it's experience or additional education beyond the technology degree, or both?
Hey, Alton.
Hey, Ricky.
Just if I could just weigh in with a couple of thoughts. That is, I think, a good idea to get all the input we can on what the difference is in the degrees, because that's what we're talking about. What I would find probably just as informative is the other side of the equation. I don't think it's as easy to get, but it'd be interesting to hear from somebody who's a registered engineer who has hired graduates, both technology and engineering graduates that have become PEs, and what their paths have been, to look at what they have done in their work profession, to see if there is some difference in their path, or their capabilities, and that would be, I think that's just like a wish. I think that would be very hard probably to gather if somebody hasn't done that already. But I just mentioned that because to me that's the kind of really the end line is what are these technology graduates capable of with a certain amount of experience. And so that's one thought. The other is, I think, just in the big picture, we're looking at, we know that most other states, I don't have the numbers now in my head, maybe it's 39 or 40 of them, or have a pathway for engineering technology to become registered. And so, yes, we're out of step nationally and not having a pathway. But I do want to recognize that the other states don't all look at technology as equal to engineering. There are a good number of those that require either additional schooling or experience. And this is a little bit of recap of our last meeting. But just so we keep that in front of us, that I think at least half of those states roughly required additional qualifications or experience or education with a technology degree. So we're not, anyway, I just wanted to kind of restate that as part of what we're looking at.
That's Ricky. This is Michael. That's correct. There were, memory serves me correct, there were 21 states that had some sort of extra requirement attached to their engineering technology degree licensing.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
This is Alton. Other discussions, considerations, concerns?
Alton, this is Steve.
I'm glad you're weighing in, Steve. I always look forward to your comments.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that there isn't an expectation that we declare the 2 degrees equivalent. I'll say what I've said in the past, that, I think I brought up some years ago that I felt like this was coming, and we actually have discussed it and signed one member to analyze it before this came up. But I think where I am on this is I would be willing to accept technology a degree with 2 conditions. I think some states require a master's degree from a ABET EA accredited school or a PhD. But I think there's some level of experience that we could justify. And my thinking, sorry, that's my desk phone.
I didn't know they still made those, Steve.
Well, I work for the city of Knoxville. We're a lower class government than you big state guys, so here we are.
No wonder I don't get anything from the city of Knoxville. People like you hang up on me.
I guess they're going to keep calling me. The other thing I was going to say is just some level of experience. Let me let somebody else talk and this phone quits ringing.
I think I understand where Steve was headed. This is Alton. Again, I think his viewpoint was, and Steve, you can jump in after your phone quits ringing and correct me if I'm wrong, but where several require either the master's degree or additional experience. I think what you were talking about is advocating for a combination of those 2 things. Robert, I'm sorry. I think I may have interrupted you. I apologize if I did.
No, I think what Steve said is, and what we've all kind of said was my purpose in getting the people here in the beginning, is maybe to understand where those lines need to be drawn. If it's something that's as simple as they didn't have this versus that, then maybe experience overcomes that. If it's something a little deeper, then maybe it is more education. So I think trying to get those pieces of information pulled together helps us draw, whether it is more experience needed or whether it's more education or a different type of education. And that's why getting some of the people that are whoever, Ricky or whoever made the suggestion of getting practitioners in, I think is a really good one too. But I just think we need to get more information from people that are actually out doing it, whether educators or not, and figure out where those lines are before we really start going forward.
This is Alton again. Let me ask a logistical question. I mean, probably each of us may know someone who has an engineering technology degree that's working for an engineering firm. But in the interest of fairness, how would we, do you think that some of the universities that provide that degree, that engineering technology degree, would have a database of where some of their graduates are placed or where they're working now that they might provide us?
Alton, this is Michael. I think we might be able to at least, we can make that outreach. I think there's no harm in asking. I don't know, we may be getting into, personal information and whatnot there. I don't know that we would be able to find precisely where students are living and working, but we may be able to get numbers at a worst case scenario. But I think we could definitely make the ask.
Hey, Alton.
Hey, Ricky.
Got my thought on trying to find practitioners. It's hard for me to imagine how to go about that, but one thought is, all the other boards. We know which states allow pathway for technology degree, and they all have boards, engineering boards, and all the boards have their executive directors. I wonder if that might be a source of information for us, because these are people who know exactly what we're doing. We're evaluating, the qualifications for registration. They do what we do, but sitting on these boards, there may be people who are running engineering companies who have both types of graduates working for them as registered engineers. So that might be a quicker source of maybe more, maybe kind of high quality type input that we're seeking. Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky. This is Alton again. Again, I'm really interested in trying. I think it's a great idea to try to identify engineering technology degreed individuals who are out working using the engineering technology degree in whatever they're practicing, and determine whether or not they're actually performing design, or are they just, as Dr. Smith implied, figuring out ways to implement what engineers design. I will tell you just from personal experience, I've worked with two individuals. One of them works here in our firm, who have engineering technology degrees. One of those individuals was a designer. Obviously, he could not seal drawings. He was not licensed in the state, but he had an engineering technology degree and was an excellent designer. Designed wastewater treatment facilities, water treatment facilities, major sewer lift stations, and other complex mechanical process designs. Under the supervision of an engineer, but still was a very competent designer. The other one really performed more drafting based services. They took what an engineer gave them and were able to get it onto paper. So there's two ends of the spectrum there. I wonder if getting people to come and actually individually give us information about the work that they perform and whether or not it constitutes actual design that would be equivalent to the same level of design that an engineer provides. I wonder if that may not be somewhat difficult to do. And whether or not it would be completely unbiased. Steve, were you able to stop the call? And can you continue your thought?
Yeah, thank you. I was just trying to figure out how to buzz my way back in, but I guess where I was going with the experience part of my thinking, if a graduate from a technology school has been in a particular field for several years, and the key is how many years, but we all typically get out of school and find our niche in engineering, and that tends to be the area that we practice in. I know some civil engineering technology graduates that have gotten their degree was from East Tennessee State, and they've gotten a job with a consulting firm and learned how to design roads and site plans, storm drainage, that kind of thing, and have seemingly done a good job with that. So I guess the key is in my opinion, for the experience to be long enough where we feel like the time is long enough to where they've got a good feel for what their practice is going to be, and they've had training under those who have done it for quite a while, and that would make us feel better about them being licensed. And I'll just throw a number of years out there, and one of the reasons I do that is because, remember, we have that long established practice where you can sit for the practice exam without taking the we used to call it the EIT, or the engineering intern exam. And I think that number of years is 12 years. So I think I'm thinking of some significant number of years experience, much greater than the 4 years for the ABET engineering accreditation.
Now,
Steve, yeah, hang on 1 second, Ricky. I'll come right back to you, I promise. Steve, you're saying, were you saying a master's degree plus 12 years, or just 12 years beyond their ET degree?
I was kind of looking through the other states, and it seems like there's two tracks, and I think I'm okay with either one of them. One being additional education beyond the technology degree with a master's from an accredited school, a master's degree from a school that has accredited undergraduate. I think that's common language. Or the increased experience. So if I think what happens a lot of times with technology students, they don't get good advice and guidance in high school. So they really think they're going to a ABET accredited, EA accredited school. Then they get so far along and they realize that in Tennessee, their degree is not qualifying. So this would give that person the opportunity to get a master's degree before they even enter the workforce if that's what they wanted to do. So one part would be an education part. The second part would be if you didn't get the master's degree, you only got the technology degree, you could get an extended number of years experience to qualify for the PE.
And did you have a thought on the number of years?
Well, I just threw out 12 years because that's what we have as long established practice. But it could be something different than that, I think.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Good thoughts and comments as always. Ricky, I'm sorry, it was returned back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think along the same lines that Steve is thinking, and I think what Robert's talking about is trying to identify exactly what the additional schooling would be and what would be the best, and or how many years of experience. I think that's so I think we're kind of headed in the same direction of what Steve's saying, and Robert's is guiding us to let's not just guess numbers. Let's see if we can somehow make an educated guess on the numbers. The one other element I'll throw in there that I don't think anybody's mentioned is we could consider too having an actual interview with applicants, technology degrees, in that what made me think of that is your comment, Alton, about how there's a pretty wide spectrum between technology graduates who are doing design and technology graduates who are not. They're more in a support role. That a lot of times you can tell when you interview somebody, you can tell pretty quickly if they are truly doing design and capable or capable of professional engineering. Not said design, but whatever aspect of professional engineering. That might be another kind of weapon in our arsenal, or whatever, however you want to say it, is a step in the process would be a better way to do it. Is a actual interview.
I guess the question would be, how do we ferret out, this is Alton, I'm sorry, how do we ferret out those people? I guess, Casey, maybe you can help us with an outreach on that to some of the larger firms who I think would be more likely to have both engineers and engineering technologists.
I'm certainly happy to do that, Alton. And I'll just say real quick that I'm going to have to jump off in about 5 minutes to go to another meeting. So I apologize. So if y'all just let me know at the end what you need me to do, and I'm happy to. But yes, I'm happy to do any outreach that you need. And that can be both with my groups and the various technical societies. Happy to do whatever you would like.
Okay, good. And thank you, Casey. We appreciate it. One other thing I would mention, again, this is Alton, is there are 3 universities on this list that I believe Wanda provided us. Michael, you may have sent it to us, I'm not sure, but the University of Memphis, UT Chattanooga, and Tennessee Tech that have both engineering and engineering technology. And I think it would be really interesting to have, if possible, the leaders of those programs give us their perception about the difference, not only the difference, but also whether or not they felt like there was some path to equivalency. That'd be obviously from an education standpoint. That doesn't do anything to address the experience standpoint. I think the items that we've talked about already that we would try to pursue to determine whether or not there a certain amount of experience would provide equivalency would be a separate consideration altogether. What would the committee think about inviting representatives from both schools of those three universities to discuss this with us?
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. I think that's what I had mentioned at the very beginning. So I'm obviously in favor of that.
All right, thank you, Robert. Ricky, do you and Steve have an opinion about that?
This is Steve. I didn't mean to say that I disagreed with Robert's suggestion. Obviously, the more information we have, the better decision we can make. I sort of felt like that we may need to give maybe Michael and Toby maybe some general parameters of where we are and try to understand where I guess the state feels like we need to move and see if we can't all come together in the same place. That's why I threw out my general ideas.
And Steve, let me make sure that I'm clear on that too. I'm not your thing about experience. I can probably go along with that. I just would like to understand, is it 4 more years of experience or 12? Is it, do they really need more education and experience or not? I just don't, I'm not comfortable with what that mix is. And I think hearing from some people, either in education or practitioner wise, kind of helps us maybe settle at that number. And that number may be 12, it may be 4, and it may be 4 years with a master's and 12 years without. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand that part of it.
Yeah, Robert, I agree with you. I think even deeper than that, though, I think one of the things that we ought to at least try to understand is what the quality of that additional experience is. If it's, as I said before, in one of our cases, if it was just drafting work and not design, well, I'm not sure that even 20 years would bring them to an equivalency level of someone who does design work. So I think we'd need, I agree with Ricky in that case, it would be interesting to interview the individual to determine the quality of the design and whether or not they actually are performing design based work, not simply drafting or taking a design from an engineer and implementing it.
I 100% agree with y'all.
Steve, I don't think our review of experience would vary with the 4 years we look at for what we currently look at. I think we would look at, if we decide it's got to be 12 for a technology degree, that's the same way we're going to look at that experience. It's got to be 12 years of progressive engineering experience using the same thought process that we currently use.
Steve, I agree with you to some extent. Although I'm kind of thinking in terms of what one of the guys that I was talking about who's doing drafting work, what he might say as his experience that would include the layout, configuration, evaluation of easements or conflicts with existing utilities, and et cetera, a number of things that an engineer would normally look at, but it really doesn't involve design. He wouldn't have done any hydraulic calculations or determinations about specifically where and what size valves or air vacuum reliefs or other things would be in the system. So it may look one way on paper and be another way in actual practice. So in those situations, without a lot more detailed information, which it's our purview to ask for, when somebody's applying for licensure, and we've done it a number of times, please give us more detailed information and elaborate on these particular segments of your work, and provide us more information related to actual design. So, again, I think the experience, we try as hard as we can to remove as much, I guess, objectivity or subjectivity as we can in some of these reviews, but at times it's difficult. We just don't get enough information, even for people who have graduated. I met all of the state of Tennessee requirements for sitting for an exam. So, and again, I guess at the end of the day, what this would include would be graduating from a school with an engineering technology degree, and either getting a master's and or having additional experience in order to be eligible to sit for the exam. So I'm assuming that the exam would still be the final hurdle to cross in order to get a PE. Does anybody disagree with that?
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. No, I don't. And I'll throw something else in here. Maybe, we have it even at some point, and maybe it's just me, talked about maybe getting back to interviewing PE candidates face to face, because we were concerned about the level of the experience, how it was being portrayed on their sheets. Some people really, it's hard to tell if they really have the experience that they say they have sometimes. So I think you're right. We can ask, maybe it's an in-person interview that we require of an engineering technology student getting ready to try to sit for their test. But we need to be very specific about what we're going to ask them too, so that we're not, jumping all over the board. But I think the interview process probably may need to be part of this as well.
Robert, you probably say Zoom meeting, because there won't be any more in-person meetings anymore. It'll be Zoom meeting will be the way to do it.
And actually, really, that does take quite a bit of the burden away from some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past, as far as people traveling too.
Right, it does. It makes it
be able to do that.
It makes it more doable.
Robert, those are good points, and I agree with you. I mean, all of us have been involved in interviews at the board level for individuals who, one, petition us to come in and speak to us, and two, that we may ask to come in and speak to us to give us more information. So I think in this particular case that may have to be a prerequisite to any decision that we make on towards granting this path to licensure. Any other thoughts or ideas, concerns, issues?
I reckon my only thought would be, have we given you all kind of a framework, or do we need to try to define this a little more, or are we kind of out in the dark with what we're asking?
No, I mean, from what I can hear, what I picked up, there are 3 universities, Tech, UTC, and Memphis. Okay, that have programs that you'd like for them to attend the next meeting, and at that point, would it be a Q&A, or would you like them to deliver remarks, or how would you want that to take place?
This
I
is
certainly
Alton.
think.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I certainly think just having them to talk about the programs and why they maybe feel that their program allows somebody the opportunity to be licensed, and then have a Q&A would be a good thing to have. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. I think we could definitely extend the invitations to those universities to attend the next scheduled or next planned committee meeting. I would buckle up. That sounds like it's going to be a long meeting, so we'll have to make sure that everybody is free for an extended period of time. I feel like that would bring us to a good and lengthy conversation. And we can go from there after that. I think that given what I know of the history of this conversation amongst the committee members, that this is a long-standing, ongoing conversation. And I think if we can start chipping away one item at a time, no, I don't believe anybody expects this to be an overnight sensation, although it would be fantastic if it was. If we chip one item off the list at a time instead of trying to do 3 or 4 items, I think we'll get to the end result a lot faster. And we can, we talked about this in our last meeting. We can set these committee meetings every month for the time that it takes to get this taken care of. I think that, we see it as an issue that we would like to have a solution to from a division, from a reg board's standpoint. We would like to see a solution to this sooner rather than later. And having those monthly meetings would be a good step towards getting that done in a quicker fashion. So I think we'll get the universities, we'll get them to join us, and they can tell us about their programs and have some Q&A with you all. And then I think at the end of every meeting, it'd be great if we all probably had a list of to-dos, whether that be just simple research and looking into other states, or in my case, getting the universities and whatnot and bringing them to the table, making sure that we have everything we need for the appropriate discussions.
Michael, this is Alton. One other thing real quickly is I think for me, I'd really like to have the deans, not the deans if possible, but whoever the representatives from both the engineering school and the engineering technology school first, so we could understand, one, what their perception of the difference is, and whether or not there is any path to equivalency in education. But while you're talking to them, if you can do the outreach to determine if they sort of keep up with the placement for the individuals that carry an engineering technology degree into the workplace, if they can give us that contact information and give us the opportunity, I don't mind making some of those calls. I'm sure none of the other board members would mind making those calls to determine if they'd be willing to either talk to us as individuals, if we have that authority. I hope Toby's still on the line to tell us whether or not we can do that. But if we can talk to them as individuals and bring that information back, or if we need to ask them to come or be available to present that information to the full committee.
Hey, it's Toby. I think if you guys, if you're, I'm sorry, I had to hop in the car, so you may hear background noise. I think if you personally can speak to any of those people just to solicit their opinion, see what they're thinking. I think that'd probably be a good background. But I think it'd be good if maybe that stuff got channeled back to Michael, so that we can maybe compile in one place all of that information that we kind of learn. But we obviously have contacts with the universities via the grant system that we have in place, right? So hopefully they would respond quickly to that inquiry.
Yeah, Toby, that's a good idea. And again, I think we do have those contacts in the engineering side, but we really don't have it in the engineering technology side. I think that's a different school. Generally, it may be a different school altogether, and we just have to ask the question and make a determination about who those people are and how we contact them. I should say how Michael figures out who they are and how to contact them.
And I'll work with him on that. I think I've got a few ideas. I think that we can try to get some of that together.
That'd be great. We appreciate your help and input on that. Michael?
Sir.
Let's see, we talked about, or you talked about the development of a to-do list. I'm wondering if we might try to, I'm wondering our order of priority here. Does anybody feel differently? I feel like talking to the representatives from the universities about the equivalency or getting to equivalency would be really important. I'd like, if we're doing things in order of importance or order of priority, I'd sort of like to do that first, and then if they can help us identify potential candidates to speak with us, to sort of help us understand what they're doing using the engineering technology degree and whether or not it meets the measure of equivalency to design. I think that would be second in order of priority. And then I think reaching out to some of the other states and how they decided to make the move to allowing the path to licensure through engineering technology, and maybe why and how they came up with the prerequisites to that would be important. And Michael, I think you might be able to do that via email, couldn't you, with some of your counterparts in other states?
I could definitely make some phone calls and or emails to some counterparts. As you're all aware, in the almost 6 months that I've been here with you all, I have not met actually physically or I think really even virtually, other than being on some very large sort of conference atmospheres. I've not met any of my counterparts. However, that has never been a problem for me in terms of outreach and or contact with those folks. I'd be happy to get in touch with them and explain our situation and just ask them for their professional feedback, in which case I've already had one successful attempt with my counterpart in Missouri, and I'd be more than happy to individually contact any and all who can be helpful to the situation.
I think that would be great. I think we can do that concurrent with some of the other things that we're doing just to get there. I'd like to understand the behind the scenes rationale for how they came to the conclusion that they were going to do this, so that we can understand it from our perspective. And then from their perspective, the other thing is how did they make the determination about whether a master's is sufficient, or a master's from an ABRED accredited university with an undergrad degree in engineering, or experience, or both, or with experience, how much, just philosophically, why? How did they come up with that?
Alton, this is Michael. I think that's great, and I encourage the conversations like that. I would like to say, though, there's no real uniform process to this, and again, in thinking about moving this ball forward, so to speak, I wouldn't want to get bogged down in the differences. I don't think any state has one real set of rules and or laws that another state is doing it. As far as I can tell, each one of these kind of has their own thought process to it. I would just hate to see us get lost in those weeds there, and not be able to make a process because there are so many different ones out there already.
Oh, and I agree with that. I guess my reason for asking that is some of them may have considered things that we haven't really thought about yet as control points or concerns that they were really specifically trying to address. I mean, there's 4 of us at this meeting, and we've had, I guess, quite literally hundreds out there in the United States that have considered this and decided either to grant the path to licensure or not. And if there's some issue, concern, or positive associated with it that we haven't thought about or haven't contemplated, I'd kind of like to know what it is. Now, I'm not talking about little in the weed details. I'm talking about what was the one large issue or concern that you were having to overcome, and why did you elect to do 12 years instead of 4 years?
As I make my outreach to my counterparts, I'll be sure to ask those questions.
That'd be great, Michael. I know we're putting a lot on you, and I kind of know and understand what your workload is already. I apologize for adding additional stuff to it, and thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Sure
Guys,
thing.
anything else?
Alton, this is Ricky. I may have missed this, but I'm kind of thinking the conversation with the school program leaders should be separate from an engineering committee meeting, and wondering why it couldn't happen in January. Is that
No,
work?
yeah, I think that's what Michael was saying is we can
Okay.
have committee meetings on an as-needed basis and not
Okay.
have to wait through February and then April, kind of like what we've done already.
Okay.
With that interim meeting that we had earlier this month. I think that's what you were saying, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, we can set this up. Like I said, I think given workload and the other programs, I think we can do one meeting a month for the time being till we get to the point where this committee can report out to the full board. I think that's really the goal, is to get to the point where you all are ready to say to the full board, this is what we've come up with, and you're the experts. You're the engineering committee, and this affects you all. So they would definitely take that as the sign of finality, so to speak. But if we can, hopefully we can get there in a matter of a couple of months if we just kind of focus on the task at hand and make sure we get all our ducks in a row.
Okay, very good. Any other items to discuss on this particular issue before we move on to the next issue? If not, then in accordance with the amended agenda, let's talk about decoupling somewhat quickly, I guess.
Alton, I'm sorry, this is Michael. Did you want to cover applications for review?
Oh, man, you know what? I'm sorry. I still was unable to open that unless it was the applications from June of 2020. I apologize to everybody. I couldn't open the encrypted email. Well, I could open it, the encrypted email that Wanda sent me, but it was from June of 2020. And I'm pretty sure that's not correct.
No, I sent you each application separately today, Alton.
Oh, shoot, Wanda. Okay.
But I have to send them encrypted because of the Social Security numbers and things on them.
Oh, sure. I understand that. And I'll try to open that while everybody else is in the discussions. Oh gosh, I see where you sent them now.
Okay.
Does everybody else have access to the information that Wanda sent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Robert, do
Yes,
you
I
have
believe
that
so.
also?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It started with Barron, Barron, correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yeah, I got it.
Very good. All right. Since I don't have those open, who reviewed Barron initially?
Robert and I did.
Okay. And
I think that's going to be a common theme. Is that Ricky and I did because there's nobody else.
Right. Yeah, I'm out in most of these applicants. I think I'm the troublemaker wanting to discuss them, but so therefore I got all super organized. So I've got all my comments just laid out right in front of me. So, do we want to start in on these, Alton?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind. I guess the first one being Barron.
Yeah. So Barron, I'll just go ahead. Barron, there's a common theme, like Robert said. We've got 3 applicants who graduated with their qualifying degree in May, and they have applied to the April 2021 exam, where they're 1 month short of 4 years. And typically I look at it like I'm not gonna start saying less than 4 years by a month is okay, because then I wonder about less than 2 months. Is that okay? Is 3 months okay? Yeah, it's just I think in the past I've done that. However, on Barron, I really have been doing what Robert did. Robert approves them, but he says I'll approve them for October exam of 2021. And so instead of disapproving this applicant, I would go back and approve this applicant for October 2021, and that would put us together on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Robert, obviously that was your recommendation to begin with. So do we want to approve this applicant contingent on him being able to sit for the exam in October of 2021?
Yeah, I think if Ricky goes ahead and does that, I mean, it's basically approved. And just kind of a method to my madness on this. Every once in a while, you'll have somebody that's a month or 2 short, and they've got their work experience while they maybe were doing internships or something is really, really good. And I may kind of give them that month of credit, or whatever. But typically you don't see that. So I just go ahead and put them in the next testing cycle.
And so, Michael, in protocol now, we've got 2 that agree with allowing the individual to sit for the exam in October. Do we need to even take a roll call vote on that?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I would say I would err on the side of caution. Okay, Maria.
Sorry to interject, but yeah, I think we do need a roll call vote on that.
I was going to say we should err on the side of caution and do that.
Okay, then Michael, would you lead us through the roll call vote?
Sure thing. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Bursai.
Okay, I approve the applicant Barron for the October 2021 exam.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
I also approve for the October 21 exam.
All right, sir. Thank you. And
Very
that
good.
carries.
And I will
Thank you.
I will send you an updated review sheet that I think you normally want to get.
I will print a new one and send it out for you to sign.
Thank you. You are too kind.
You're quite welcome.
Okay.
Hey, Wanda, who is next on the list?
Mr. Gidwani.
Okay. Who?
Did you get that transmittal sheet at all, Alton?
I did, but I still can't open them. I can't file save them, and I can't open them. I'll get my IT guy to figure out what's wrong. This is beyond my competence, which is true of most things, unfortunately. Okay, sorry. Who performed the well? Obviously, both of you probably did. And was there a disagreement on Mr. Gidwani, or maybe Mrs. Gidwani?
Yeah, this is a foreign degree applicant that is the degree is called a engineering technology degree. It's it went to school in India, and I had said I would be willing to discuss in light of this whole technology degree discussion that we're having. Didn't know if we'd have any flexibility there, and Robert suggested Dr. Smith evaluate his degree. It was evaluated in the application, and it's deficient 9 hours in math and basic sciences and 5 hours in general education. The general education deficiency is made up using the Robert Campbell fantastic spreadsheet. So we're looking at the 9-hour math and science course deficiency. And my thoughts on this are sometimes the foreign degrees are called technology in the title, but they're kind of more like our engineering degrees. So, I mean, I'm looking at the curriculum and it looks more like engineering than technology, but that's really kind of probably why Robert's suggestion is so good, to have Dr. Smith look at it. And it may be an example of what we're looking for in the future, in that this applicant has a master's degree in civil engineering from, I think it was the University of Texas at Austin, and also has 20 years of experience. And the other thing that gives me comfort is this applicant's been either registered now or has been registered in a dozen states. So that kind of makes a difference to me when I see that. So, and the other thought I've had is, in the past, when we have a foreign degree applicant who is deficient in math or science by like a course or two, we recently we have approved those if we felt okay about it, if they had a lot of years of experience as a practicing engineer. So all those are thoughts I had as I looked at this. This might be a little murkier because we don't quite know what the degree is, but those are the thoughts I've had. So I don't know if Robert, I don't know if you where you
Yeah,
are.
I didn't. I think Dr. Smith needs to do an evaluation. Number one. Number two, he talks about the degree. I mean, is being high level, and he was able to get into the master's program at Texas, which I'm not sure. I think there are a lot of master's degrees that accept applicants that are engineering technology. But also something that was a little troubling, I didn't see that school on the Washington Accord list. Uh, I may have gone through it, but typically I would expect that, if you were at an upper level university in your country, that was a country that India is a country of, it's a Washington Accord signatory. I would have thought we would have seen that school on the list, and I didn't see it anywhere unless I just blew by it. But that's why I recommended Dr. Smith evaluate it.
I'll go along with it.
Okay, so Michael, once again, I'm assuming that the recommendation of the engineering committee is to defer the application to Dr. Smith to determine whether or not the degree is equivalent to an ABET accredited degree. Ricky, Robert, is that stated the way you want it stated?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm assuming that we would want to vote on that recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Michael, will you do a roll call vote?
Sure thing. Mr. Bursai.
Okay, I recommend that we have Dr. Smith evaluate the degree.
Okay. Mr. Campbell.
I second that.
All right. We can now move on to, let's see, Mr. Ham.
Very good. Who reviewed, or who would like to take the lead on Mr. Ham?
That might be Jim Spicoli.
Did you say Spicoli?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was Mr. Hand. I'm sorry.
I thought you were just talking about my Italian roots.
No, I was talking about an unfortunate movie of my childhood.
I understand. Good.
Robert or Ricky, would one of y'all want to discuss your viewpoint on that application?
Yeah, I'll go. This is another one who is 1 month short of the 4 years and is asking to take the test in April of 2021, and so I approved this applicant for October of 2021, and Robert approved him for April, and I went back and reviewed the application again, and I'm assuming Robert approved him for April because this applicant had a pretty high quality internship of about 1.5 years, and the reality was it wasn't really 1 month short. It was really only about 2 weeks short. So I'm thinking, Robert, this is one of those cases where you made a judgment call and said they've got their 4 years in. Is that correct?
Yes, Ricky. I mean, that was it. He had a pretty long internship, and then, like you said, it was really only about 2 weeks, and that seemed to be reasonable to me.
Okay, I will go along with that. Going back and reviewing it again, I'm comfortable with that.
So is the motion, I guess, or the recommendation is to approve this application to sit for the April exam?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, I suppose, do we need somebody to put that in the form of a motion and then vote on it?
I think you just verified the motion. The motion would be to defer this applicant to the April 2021 exam. However, given that we are doing roll call votes, I think we should formalize that.
Or it's actually not to.
I don't guess it would. Yeah, not defer. It would be to approve him for the
applicant for that April.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. Yes, you're correct. It even says that there on the page.
Okay, so I'm assuming we have then a motion to approve this applicant to sit for the April exam. Michael, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bursai.
I approve.
Mr. Campbell.
I approve as well.
All right. Thank you both. We can move on to the Reed file.
Okay, and the Reed file is almost identical to Ham. This person is asking to be approved for April of 2021, and I approved this applicant for October of 2021. They were a month short, and Robert approved for April, and I went back and looked at it, and there's the same set of circumstances. It's very high quality internship that the applicant has been in. And when I say high quality, they're working 30, 35 hours a week doing design in the summer, and then, a good bit of that during the school year. So I'm thinking we've got the same in Reed, the same rationale. Robert, is that right?
Yes, sir. I mean, that was my thought process. I actually was consistent for once, but yes.
Okay. And I want to say too that we're always looking for consistency here, and we've got these applicants that we have turned down and send to October, or we don't approve them for an April. If they're 1 month short, we send them to October. And these two we've just approved for April. But I think we've explained that it is a different situation with the internships that they have.
And Ricky, let me kind of also, and the rest of the committee obviously weigh in on this, not just their internship stuff too, but we really have to look at their experience. You can see somebody that's got that from a calendar perspective has 4 years from the time they got their degree, and you say, okay, you meet it. But then you look at their experience, and they've really only got within that 4 years of experience, a year of progressive engineering experience. Remember, our job is to determine progressive engineering experience, not just some calendar time frame. And so that's another part of this factor with me, is that you start looking at this guy being 1 month short and the one before him, but their experience looked pretty solid for the entire 4 years of doing what I would call progressive engineering experience. And some don't meet that criteria, in my opinion.
I agree with you. That's a good point. What I don't want to get into is starting to look at applicants as well. If 3 years and 11 months is okay, is 3 years and 8 months okay, and get into that. That's why I think previously just used 4 years as a stone cold hard barrier there. But I can, in my mind, the two that we just are the three that we're approving here, or the two for April, are inside of a month when you really look at the time. And so I think that's a difference where they in the internship and the quality, like you say, shove it. But I don't want to get into eroding where we have to make some kind of qualified, agonizing decision for less than 4 years when we've got 4 years in our rules. in-laws, period.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, given that, we have a recommendation that the applicant be approved to sit for the April exam. Michael, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bursai,
I approve.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes, approved.
All right, that is approved, and we can move on to the rider file.
Okay, this is one that where Kathy reviewed this and disapproved, stating that he needed 18 more months. This is an applicant who needed 18 more months of verified work experience, and I felt a little queasy about it because two of the references were negative. Out of the 5, 3 were positive, and then the other two, one just didn't know, had to kind of say I don't know enough about this applicant, and the other was actually a negative. And in subsequent to that, the applicant obtained 2 more positive references, and I've reviewed everything about this application, and I kind of lean towards approving. The one negative comment still kind of bothers me. The substance is kind of strange. I don't think I've seen a reference like this, but this person has mainly worked in the automotive industry, and the negative reference stated that their understanding is this person wanted to get licensed so they could open up their own civil engineering company. And they were basically making a claim that this person didn't have the experience to do civil engineering. They had really only been involved with testing, and I hear that, but every one of us as engineers, there are all kinds of areas where by experience I'm not qualified to do a design, and so I stay away. It really comes down to your honor system, staying away from what you're not qualified for. So I think it's a little unfair to ding somebody because of a reference thought that. But anyway, I lean towards approving this, but it kind of doesn't matter since Kathy has said no to this unless Robert reviews this and has a recommendation.
Well, let's see. I'm kind of,
Ricky, I'm sorry.
or,
Go ahead,
or
Bob.
something else to assign it to somebody to look at again, because I'm not. Let's see. You know, the other thing that concerns me is he's kind of in the same field that Kathy was in, and she says that he needs more experience. But I know two of his references and have great respect for him that gave him, um, good marks. Um, Everybody still here? Waiting on me?
Yeah, waiting on you, Robert.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and Robert, that's okay. It's kind of putting you on the spot, but yeah, I was looking at his experience, in the automotive industry. It's true that in the geotechnical industry, it looks like he's mainly done testing, although testing is part of what that um, the application of theory, part of experience. Testing is listed under there. But I know we always like to see some design there, but it looks like the design came in looks like there was some design in the automotive industry, work that he had.
Well, here's my yeah. Let me make a recommendation. I think this individual's probably a couple years short, and let me tell you why I think that.
Okay.
Steve made a great point a little while ago about our engineering technology people, and it's kind of something that I look at too. If we've got I like to see some consistency in their work product for that 4-year period. So, you don't like to see somebody go, oh, I designed bridges for 3 months, and then I designed a wastewater plant for 3 months, and then I designed whatever, a subdivision for 3. And so they're all over the board and they're really not getting good at anything. So I'd like to kind of see that, if he was going to be in geotechnical, I would prefer to have seen, 3 to 4 years experience in that field. But I don't see that. I see a couple years maybe, and then I see this going into manufacturing engineering. So it really begs the question, what's he going to be when he grows up? The same as if I see somebody that's worked for 7 different people in a 4-year period, that causes me concern. I understand people are mobile and I don't want to take that away, but are they really learning their craft by going in and out of it so many times? And so I would prefer that, that he have a couple more years of experience either in manufacturing or in something geotechnical or related to geotechnical, so we can see kind of what path he's going down.
Well, why don't you? I like that. Why don't you make a motion for me?
Okay, I'll make a motion that he needs at least 2 more years experience in either geotechnical or manufacturing, in order to establish a consistency of his of the work product.
Yeah, I will say that.
Very good. We have a motion. Michael, when you lead the roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Burnside.
Yes on the motion.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
The motion passes, and we can move to the Tilton file.
Okay, on this one, Alton, I approve this applicant for the April 2021 exam. Robert approved for the October 2021 exam, and Wanda just needs to know which one. And my thought is, it looked like even though this applicant had 3 or 4 jobs in this time, 3 or 4 different firms, I guess, they were all with design firms doing structural design, plus this applicant has a master's degree. So I felt comfortable with April 2021, but if Robert is thinking it really ought to be October 2021, that's what it'll be. I mean, that'll takes 2 of us, so we can do that.
Let me look again to see. I mean, I'm not trying to, again, that what I said before about moving around just concerns me.
Yeah, I agree. That's smart. This one, I went back and looked at it again, and I because I saw your comments there, but all of the jobs it looked like were doing structural design. So it wasn't like, it looked like, I think we've probably approved applicants to sit with less quality experience than this applicant, because it looked like they were just doing pure design, structural design the whole time.
No, Ricky, you're probably right. You're probably right.
Okay, well,
Go ahead. I'll go ahead and approve him for the April 2021.
Okay, so we have a recommendation that this applicant be approved to sit for the April 21 exam. Michael, will you please do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bursey.
I approve.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Very good. That is passed, and I believe we have one more item listed under other. That would be the McClellan email about the technology degree question.
Michael, did you send that out to everyone?
It was in the folder, Alton. It was part of the I believe the package that you could not open.
I just sent it to you again a few minutes ago, Alton.
Okay, thank you, Wanda. This is from Shannon McClellan, dated November 18th.
Correct.
Has everyone had a chance to review this?
Yes.
Ricky, if do you have thoughts or comments?
Yes. This is a person who would like to apply for to take the FE to them, so that they are on path to become a PE, and it looks like their degree was called an engineering technology degree, but it has been renamed a civil/sustainability engineering degree, and will get ABET certification in 2022. And I had a question just on that, to know whether, you can get an ABET accreditation as a technology program or an engineering program. So what was this looking at, an EAC, being EAC ABET accredited or ETAC accredited? I'm not sure which, but assuming that the potential applicant's talking about, and that it's going to be EAC ABET certified, the applicant's claiming that their curriculum is one math class short and one general engineering class short of making it ABET certified, and they're kind of asking, is there a path besides a master's program that how they could become eligible? And I guess my short answer is, this seems like another instance where we have Dr. Smith look at the coursework and say what is lacking, how many classes would be needed to make it equivalent, and then she would have her answer.
Ricky, that was going to be my recommendation is, I mean, if it, you know, how far away from being equivalent is it?
So, Robert and Ricky, I think if I understand correctly, your recommendation is to defer her what do you call the thing? The all of the information about your schoolwork that you performed while you were there. Refer that to Dr. Smith to determine equivalency, and if it's not equivalent, specifically what classes she's short in.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's
want to?
yeah, that's what she's asking at the end is what do we recommend would make it equivalent.
Okay. So is the motion then to defer it to Dr. Smith to determine the equivalency, and subsequent to that, if it's not equivalent, specifically where it is short and what coursework she would need to make up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that in the form of a motion?
Alton, I don't know that I can speak as eloquently as you can, so you might want to.
Alton, if your statement could be taken as a motion, I'll second what you said.
Okay, good, Michael. I think you're recording this, so you can play that back, I guess, as a motion. Is there, since Robert made the motion and Ricky, you're seconding the motion?
Yes.
Very good. Then, is there any other discussion? There being none, Michael, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bursay.
Yes, for the motion.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. And thank you both for that. All right, Michael, other than the decoupling issue, is there anything left on the agenda that and the election for a new chairman?
No, sir. Those are
a much more competent chairman.
well, yeah. That's the only things left to discuss are your agenda changes that were voted on at the beginning of the meeting.
Very good. All right. One of the agenda changes involved decoupling, and Chris Gwaltney from Lipscomb was kind enough to share some information with me. And Robert, I think this is probably similar to some of the discussions that you and I have had in the past, specifically about the pass-fail rate, depending on the years of experience that you had.
Yeah.
And it seemed to peak somewhere between 4 and 6 years.
Yes.
And then grew again after 11 plus years. But I don't know what the sample data was. The information that Chris provided me was from 2013 to 2018. So, and again, I don't know how many states acknowledged or allowed decoupling during that time period. I know there were a number of states that went to decoupling in 2017. It looks like roughly, no, I'm not, I only see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 10 states or 11 states that had decoupling in place in 2017. One instituted it in 2018. So I'm not sure what the sample size is and if that's really indicative of the number of people sitting for the exam. But in that scenario of students taking it early, it appeared that 4 to 6 years was the premium pass point. Now, I will say, and this is again my perspective or my opinion on it, and not necessarily a reflection of anything else, or certainly not a board's opinion. But, you know, if we're about creating a path to licensure that we can be comfortable with, and if we really do want to facilitate a methodology for people moving towards professional licensure, it's just my personal experience based on about somewhere between 8 and 10 presentations to senior classes of engineering students, that more than 90% of them would much prefer to take the PE immediately upon graduation and not have to wait 4 years. And as we all know, a lot of those graduates go into professions that may not necessarily require PEs. They may be working in the construction industry. They may be working in industry. Or they may be working for other employers that have the exemption, telecommunications or electric utilities or things like that, that would not pursue the PE later, at the 4-year mark of their professional career. Some of them, particularly during recessionary periods, come in and recognize, you know, it's going to be hard for me to get a job if I don't have a PE. Therefore, I want to petition the state for my license. I wasn't there in 2007 or 8, but I was there in 2009, and I think we saw a lot of those in that period. So just, again, my opinion, both from a, as Kathy would say, getting to yes, and trying to create a path to licensure that doesn't, I guess, hamstring someone who goes into a career or goes into the job force working for somebody who may not require it at that point in time. If we want to get them to the PE, if we want to get them to professional licensure, and if that many students indicate they would sit for the PE right, if they were able to take it right out of school, then I would advocate for that. However, one other element that I've spent a lot of time evaluating and asking questions about is the people that prepare the PE exam. And I think, as we all know, that PE exam has become much more of an academic exercise than it is an actual practice exercise. And for the most part, it seems to me that more than 80% of the individuals that serve on the NCAAS's exam committee are academia. Given that, I think that's yet another reason why students with recent history in academia may be more likely to sit for the exam. So, again, that's just a 2 cents worth, and I know there's contrarian viewpoints to that, and very good ones. So, I'd like to hear others' thoughts.
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. I don't know that I've got a contrarian viewpoint. I just, I maybe have a different perspective. Ease of licensure, simplification of the process, uh, academic test, and all that aside, are we um, potentially uh, putting the health, safety, and welfare of the public at risk by allowing them to take the test early? And I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not saying that like I've got a great answer, but I kind of go back to what we talked about a little earlier, or I did maybe, about what path they're on. A person that takes this test 6 months after. So I'm reckoning, does the test, is it really the indicator that we think it is? Does it really make sure that we're producing a good engineer? Or is it something else, and maybe the test is not what we think it is? I don't know the answers to all those questions. It seems, though, to indicate to me that experience, based on the numbers you read earlier, that years of experience in the profession is ultimately a indicator on taking the success and taking the test, not the other way around. So maybe the test has no real. It's not a real good indicator of how well they're going to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I don't know. I'm talking in circles, but I'm not sure I know the answer to those questions.
Yeah, Robert, this is Alton. I agree with you on that. Again, I guess my issue with the comparison that was made about people taking it early versus people taking it at that 4 to 6 year period. Again, I'm not sure what the sample size was early on in that process, because there were so many states that did not allow or did not have a methodology or did acknowledge decoupling as a path to licensure. The other thing that the issue that you talked about, and I agree with you, we don't want to do anything that would even potentially affect the public's health, safety, and welfare. And I think just because someone passes a PE early doesn't mean that it would exempt them from also having to meet Philip Lim's three-legged stool. I think the 4 years of experience under the supervision of a licensed professional would still be a critical consideration towards approval of licensure.
No, this is Ricky. I can weigh in with some thoughts if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. I've thought about this a lot, as we all have, and I cannot come up with any rationale to say this is affecting the health, safety, welfare at all. We're still requiring the three-legged stool requirements of education, exam, and experience. They've got to have the education to take the test. They've got to have the experience to become a PE, and they've got to be able to pass the exam. And whether somebody's able to pass the exam after 1 year or 4 years, I can't see the difference in health, safety, welfare to somebody. If they can't pass the exam, they won't become a PE. If they can pass the exam at year 1, they're probably pretty good. They would have passed it at year 4. And So I just can't see any effect negatively on health, safety, welfare. And I also don't think that it matters that more people pass the test at year 4. What you're talking about is giving a graduate the flexibility of when they want to take it. If they want to take a chance and take it after year 1, why should we prevent them from doing that? And if they fail, they may have to take it the second or third time or fourth or fifth time and find that they pass it at year 4. But what does that matter really to us? What we're doing is guaranteeing to the public that nobody's going to become an engineer without passing the test, period. So if they can pass it before year 4, I don't see why we would not allow that, and so therefore decouple. And again, I probably said this before, but in my experience taking the mechanical exam, probably a little different than civil and structural. I can see where the civil and structural exam is more of a practice exam. The mechanical and all the other discipline, that what we do out in the work world varies so much. I'm a mechanical engineer doing HVAC design. There are mechanical engineers out there that are building cardboard boxes, and there are mechanical engineers that are doing all kinds of things in industry that are different. All of us, even though the exam questions may be practice in nature, they're all academic, because I had to study and pass questions on power generation that I don't do, and on fluids that I don't necessarily do. And so whether it's practice or not, it all becomes academic if that's not what you do in your work day in and day out. So I think that I can't come up with a good solid reason why not to decouple the 4 years experience from passing the exam.
Ricky, thank you. Yoda, are you still there with us? Steve?
I'm here.
Speak, oh Sage One.
Well, I'm okay with decoupling. I always have been. I think that, the way we end up in our practice, we end up narrowing down. And I think back on when I took my PE test, I did some structural problems that I wouldn't dare tackle and put my stamp on. Just happened to be that I was working on a master's degree and had recently taken some structures courses, and I could do some of those problems. I took it back in the day when you had 10 problems in the morning and 10 problems in the afternoon, and you picked 4 each session, and did it your calculations by hand and handed it in your sheets. But I'm okay with decoupling. I just think we're sort of waiting on the professional societies to be on board with us and move on. I do think this will end up being one of those issues where we may become so different from other states, and particularly surrounding states, that we're going to need to move on it.
Yeah, good comment, Steve, as always. Thank you. And I know when we had I remember whether it was earlier this month or in October, when we talked to Casey about this, one of the things that she came back and told us is, that I think that they would probably like some answer from the board or some recommendation from the board about these alternative paths to licensure, which obviously the engineering technology degree is one, the decoupling is another. And I suppose it may be incumbent on us with some help from Casey, and the professional societies to sort of create some format for how we may consider this, or under what circumstances we might consider this, or what parameters we would put on consideration of decoupling, so that we don't go to the legislature with one thing at a time. If we're going to address this and we're going to present it to the legislature for changes to our laws and rules or statutes, then we probably ought to try to get all of this in one time. And I agree with her, and I understand the rationale for why. I think, Michael, you kind of talked to us about the rationale for why also. So I think as we're considering alternate pathways to licensure for engineering technology, we ought to similarly be probably developing the same thing for decoupling and coming up with a plan for what we may accept and under what conditions we would recommend that. And again, I think I was the one that actually volunteered to take the lead on that. And I wonder, are you still on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want to thank you. You gave me some updated information, some information about member boards and the decoupling status, and it was a little over 2 years ago, I think, was the latest information that we had. Do you know whether or not that's been updated?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. What was NCWS, or what was your source for information on that? Do you remember?
I remember what I did yesterday. No, I'm sorry, I do not remember. But
okay.
I remember you went to a Titans game.
I wish I could have.
If we could impose on you to look and see if you can kind of figure out what your source was,
okay,
and see if there's an update to that November of 2018 information, that would be really helpful. If you could just email that to me, I'd be glad to follow up with some of this.
Okay, I will do that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Wanda.
You're welcome.
Any other comments before we leave this topic and go to the one I'm most interested in?
So I think that the answer still is, I think I'm not opposed. I don't think anybody on here is opposed. But I don't know. I think we have to have the societies have to coalesce around an answer, and lead the charge. Until they do that, we're just kind of sitting here twiddling our thumbs.
Okay. So it's your opinion that really this needs to come, or any recommendation should come from the professional societies and not from the board?
Yeah, Alton, I don't think we as a board see any horrible risk to this. I mean, I agree with everything that everybody said. I think it's a little. I think it's for the registrant or potential registrant. I think they ought to wait a little bit just so that they can. I think the numbers show that, but like Steve, I think it was Steve that said, or that's their risk, or Ricky, whoever. But I don't know that it messes up the health, safety, and welfare of the public to let them take the test early, as long as we make sure that experience part's in good shape. But I mean, me thinking it and you thinking it and all of us thinking it's not going to get legislation written and go get that changed. It's especially when we've got potentially some opposition from our own members. So they need to say yes or no and lead the charge, and we'll, pat them on the back, I reckon. But I'm not sure right now that's our opinion has been heard. We think it's we think it's not going to mess anything up. So it's up to them to go forward.
Okay. Michael, let me ask you from a protocol standpoint. I don't mind calling Casey. I know at one point she was going to try to assemble a committee for the review and recommendation for decoupling. But I think she's postponed that and sort of asked the board to at least give them some direction, or maybe give them, I don't know if it's a position or a perception or whatever. If it doesn't violate a protocol, I would be glad to contact Casey to find out what she would need and whether or not she could assemble that committee and try to get their information and recommendation pulled together and come back to us to review that recommendation.
I don't know. I don't think it breaks any form of protocol for you to talk to Casey. But I would defer to Maria on that. Maria, am I incorrect in that interpretation?
That Alston can just reach out to Casey about it, or clarify whether or not we need a recommendation from the board.
I believe we're just talking about outreach for discussion.
Yeah, that should be fine. As long as it's for purposes of, the things that we can bring back to the board for discussion.
Okay, that being the case, I'm glad to do that. I know she said she had another obligation this afternoon, but I will reach out to her right away and see if I can talk to her about that. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, there being none, I think, Michael, the last item on our agenda is the election of a new chairman. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is it.
And if I'm allowed to, I would like to recommend that Steve King assume the role of chairman. Do any of the board members have?
We hear a nomination. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Any discussion? Steve, I suppose I should ask you before there's a vote called. If nominated, would you agree to serve as chairman?
I will, even though I think I'm getting railroaded. I'm kind of getting that feeling.
I don't have any comment on that. We have a motion and a second, and the candidate nominated has agreed to serve if appointed. Is there any other discussion? There being none, Michael, would you lead a roll call vote, please?
Very well, Mr. Bursai.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Chairman King, congratulations.
Michael, I think that actually needs to go for the whole committee.
Oh,
okay. It's a committee chairmanship.
Sure thing then. Mr. Heathcote.
Absolutely, yes.
And Mr. King.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. There we go. Congratulations, sir.
Michael, quick question, and I don't see Toby on. Where are we status of new members on our board?
That is in progress. I know that we received a number of names for both the position or the seat that Kathy Ware had resigned from, as well as the associate seat from West Tennessee. Well, my understanding is those are still under the vetting process. I have, however, heard that there are some, I think there are some preferential candidates that are be close to potentially being named. So hopefully, by the end of this month, we could have something to go on.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Michael. Any other items to come before this committee? Any other discussions?
Alton, this is Ricky. I've got just one kind of comment question, if I could. We just touched on it. We've had this question about voting on the engineer committee, and when I first got on the board, everybody voted on everything, but I think it was pointed out to us, and Marie, and you may have been part of this, that or at least feeling this question, that it does say in our either laws or rules somewhere that applications are voted on by the voting members, but I'm thinking everything else other than applicants, shouldn't that be voted on by all of the engineering committee members? All the committees that we have, the committee members vote. Should not the full committee vote on anything that's a non-applicant issue?
That would be the intuitive approach, and maybe the common sense approach. But however, sorry, and for the record, this is Maria. The statute is very clear that I think it's the term associate engineer members are not to have voting powers. And so it's not even in a rule or anything. It comes straight from the statute. So that's kind of where we landed on that, even though, it's not the answer. I think probably looking for.
Okay, and you don't think that can be construed that that's voting in the full board meeting as opposed to a committee?
That's not, I really don't see any wiggle room around it. It just says no voting power. And so I can check, and I'm happy to review and send you all what I'm looking at. But my analysis before has been that it says just no voting power. It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay, just wanted to ask. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, anything else to come before the committee?
This is Steve.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Couple of things. One, do you plan on giving the committee report tomorrow, or do I need to be prepared to do that?
I've been taking notes. I assumed that I would do that as my last act as chairman.
That sounds good to me. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that my term expired last June. So I noticed Michael didn't mention my appointment. I just wondered if that's in the works too.
I will definitely check on that. However, if you have not received a thank you for your service letter from the governor's office, you are still considered board member. I need to get in touch with the appointing authorities anyway on some other issues pertaining to a different program, but I will include that inquiry into my email this afternoon.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Gentlemen, if you would indulge me for 1 second, I would just like to ask you, since we're here, and we clearly have a lot more conversation to have, how does everyone's January schedule look for scheduling a meeting right now? I don't believe we're not scheduled for a full board meeting, so we can virtually work any week, almost any week in January. I will be out the first full week of January, but anytime from the 11th to the 29th.
Why don't we come back? This is Alton, Michael. Why don't we come back around the middle of the month, sometime the 13th through the 15th? We wouldn't want to do it Monday. That's your first week back, first day back, but some other time during that week.
Sure thing. I'm fine with the 13th. We could do that Wednesday the 13th, if all are agreeable.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we give you an opportunity to do the outreach to the universities to see if we could schedule a date with them where they'd be available?
Okay, we can.
Sometime that week, if that works for everybody.
Yeah, that'll be good with me. That week's fine so far.
Same
Okay.
with me, pretty open.
Steve, what about you?
Are we talking about doing it in the afternoon like we typically do, or what time?
I believe what Alton is saying is we'll leave that open to when we can either have complete or the most participation from the universities that we had talked about participating earlier. That could very well be a morning meeting, as opposed to our typical 1 o'clock start time. But that would just depend highly on when those deans are available. If you're willing, if you're willing to go that route, that's fine. We can get that scheduled. Or if you would just like to have a time, we are probably over a month out from that point. If you wanted to set a time right now and then just say, try and make them fit into that box, that'd be fine too.
I think I could make it work. I would have to move some things, but I can make it work.
Okay, we'll shoot for the afternoon. We'll definitely shoot for the afternoon 1 p.m. start as per our usual practice. But just in the event that we can't get enough participation, or any for that matter, be advised we may have to shift to a morning meeting.
Okay.
All right,
I think all of us probably at this point have plenty of flexibility, Michael, but the sooner maybe the better. You know, as you know, just like with any of our schedules, the further away, the closer to that date we move, the more it's going to fill up.
Sure. I agree, and I will get on top of that as soon as possible. Before the end of this semester, that's for darn sure.
Okay, good deal. Michael, thank you. Thanks for heading that up. We appreciate your effort on that.
Not a problem.
Okay.
I don't believe there's any other business.
Very good. If there is no other business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will make
We have a motion to adjourn and a motion to adjourn taking precedence over all other motions. We are officially adjourned. I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to serve as the chairman. I'm grateful for the chance to hand it over to somebody who is much more articulate than I am and organized than I am. So, Steve, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
You may regret that comment later on.